With CES 2025 and big announcements coming in the world of home arcades and gaming, we got some confirmed information from John D and Media1Up on what we can expect to see tomorrow. Okay, guys, we are back, and CES 2025 does start tomorrow. And our goal, of course, is to cover all the companies as fairly as possible, like we've always done for years on this particular channel. There's been some information coming out regarding John D's upcoming Media1Up arcade machine, and I reached out to John D yesterday. I just sent him a random message. I'm like, hey, man, big announcement tomorrow. Is there anything or you want to share before the announcement goes live? And he gave me some information that you guys might find interesting. So one of the first things we have to wonder is, was this actually real? John D is in Las Vegas right now. He's staying at a hotel in Las Vegas. They're doing some kind of private events and presentations with distributors, partners, licensors, content creators, etc., for people to come check out his arcade machines that is in attendance there with him as well. Taking a peek here at whether or not it's real, John D did confirm it's real, and what I found very interesting is not only is the announcements and reveals going to be live tomorrow, January 7th, but also apparently pre-orders will also be available as well on January 7th. Apparently, as you guys know, John D's been in the business for a while. He's got many contacts when it comes to manufacturing, distribution, retail partners, licensing, etc. So if a guy like this was going to start his own business, he's got all the contacts, he's got all the networking, and he's apparently already sold his product to multiple retail partners that are going to be putting up pre-orders. Now, who they are, John D didn't reveal, I guess due to, contractual obligations or whatever. Can't give that information out until January 7th, nor can you confirm what the actual pricing is and all that kinds of stuff. This product means this is not going to be a crowdfunding or Kickstarter campaign. I was wondering myself personally if John D would have to go that route, but apparently he's got, again, the contacts and backing, and he's got investors, and he's all set up to go and start building these machines and putting in the pre-orders and shipping them here in 2025. And apparently these machines are going to be under, how like RPi5 is the brand for tastemakers. Apparently, John D, I guess he's a big fan of like Spike Lee. Whenever Spike Lee makes a movie, it's called a Spike Lee joint, that kind of thing. So John D is apparently going to call these the John D joint is the brand that his arcade machine's going to fall under. I myself find that kind of silly. It doesn't really ring something arcade themed like RPi5 makes you think of an arcade. John D joint really doesn't make me think of something arcade related unless you know who John D is in the arcade and gaming world. Another quick follow-up point on this, I do find it very, very interesting that pre-orders might actually go live tomorrow from multiple retail partners. Whatever John D showed him was enough for multiple retailers to place orders, and as you guys know, that means if retail partners place orders and are going to ship this and sell this via retail, that must mean that they like what they saw and probably placed orders for thousands of machines. Also last week, I saw a video come out from the Rexer Show and others where they were talking about how John D was making an arcade machine with a Raspberry Pi 5, as well as it being a conglomerate between him and Unico, as well as Iconic Arcade and other companies and stuff like that. I asked John to confirm that information, and unfortunately, John wouldn't confirm anything but the Raspberry Pi, so I can't give you guys any definitive information as to who his partners are, who's helping him build these cabs, and all that kinds of stuff. I'm assuming John D is going to announce that information tomorrow. But taking a peek here, guys, yes, it is a Raspberry Pi 5, and it will, of course, have licensed games. So John, with his, obviously, he's a licensor, big name in licensing. It is going to have licensed games on it. He didn't confirm how many or what the games were. But apparently, not only will he have licensed games on there, and I know I put a lot of information on this slide, but I figured you guys could take screenshots if you need it. It's also, this is officially licensed product by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So John D's arcade machine is going to be officially licensed and approved by the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which I found very, very interesting. If you're familiar with Raspberry Pi, these single board computers have HDMI ports, USB ports, 5G up to 5G Wi-Fi, Ethernet capabilities. So when it comes to, you know, John D did mention to me, so online and tournament play is going to be an easy possibility for those who want to do that kind of stuff with his products. And of course, when, that made me think, okay, he's doing a fighting cabinet. It's got to be. I mean, is there anything else he would do as his first arcade cabinet? It's got to be a fighting game cabinet. Raspberry Pi 5 can emulate PlayStation 2, GameCube, Wii, some Dreamcast, and this is the some category, some PlayStation 3. It says PSE, but I meant to put PlayStation 3, some Switch, and of course some Dreamcast, but usually PS2, GameCube, Wii aren't an issue. So when it comes to if John D wants to put like a little online store where you could purchase, license, and add more games to this cabinet, there's some cool games he could get that, although they're console games, maybe they could make a fun arcade experience. But obviously, whatever the licensed games are that come included with this thing out of the box will, of course, be arcade games. Now, I myself, when I think about Raspberry Pis and arcade 1-ups, I really don't personally get excited about that anymore. And maybe that's because, guys, it was 6 years ago that we saw ETA Prime break the home arcade community internet by installing and basically being the founding father of all the home arcade mods, figuring out these HDMI LCD converter boards and what zero delay encoder boards we could use. And it was 6 years ago that we were doing Raspberry Pi mods on arcade 1-ups, and it all started with ETA Prime. Once this video came out 6 years ago, it really just exploded our arcade and gaming community. So, but back then, we were using like he was using like a Pi 3, and, and then eventually Pi 4s came out, and now we're on the Pi 5. And me personally, I've kind of steered away. You'll notice on my channel, I really don't talk about the Raspberry Pi anymore. And it's because, 5 years ago when I started, we were doing Raspberry Pi 3 mods, Raspberry Pi 4 mods. So doing another Raspberry Pi cabinet doesn't excite me. That's why a lot of times I have been lately in the last year or so, if you look at my content, primarily focused on mini PCs, gaming PCs. That's been more, it's like new, different that I've been tinkering with versus, oh, here we go, I'm doing another Raspberry Pi mod. But apparently the Raspberry Pi 5 is pretty impressive. The Raspberry Pi 5s nowadays obviously are a lot more powerful than the Raspberry Pi 4s and 3s that I have personally used in the past. I mean, again, guys, I haven't touched a Raspberry Pi 5. I don't have any firsthand experience with it. But what I do know is that when it comes to the Raspberry Pi 5, it does have a pretty significant and established ecosystem and community and development support still behind the Raspberry Pi to this day. And in addition to all that, guys, the Raspberry Pi, if there are PCB issues or things like that, it's an off-the-shelf product versus a lot of other competitor products out there, such as Rockchip Boards and stuff. So, when companies use a customized PCB, and if it's prone to defects, it's much harder for the companies to replace those products as well as do solutions and things like that, versus the Raspberry Pi 5, as well as, future-proofing this for the Raspberry Pi 6 or 7. It means that there's going to be a lot more support there, as well as the product being more readily available. And again, because this Raspberry Pi 5 that John is using, he's partnering with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and this product is officially endorsed, licensed, sponsored by them, etc. So because they're all in on it, that means John will have plenty of community support from developers in the community when it comes to releasing and putting his licensed games on here and things like that. Now, sure enough, I did ask John the million-dollar question. I said, John, well, what about people adding their own games? And obviously he said that what you would expect him to say, because he's working with licensors and all this stuff. He's like, we do not officially support using non-licensed ROMs on our devices. But it's a Raspberry Pi. That last sentence was for me. Now, when it comes to companies like At Games, which are using pretty much ARM-based single-board computers with Rockchip devices, as well as other companies out there, there's probably going to be a big debate in this home arcade community as to whether or not the Raspberry Pi or Rockchip is the way to go. There's definitely pros and cons to both. I think what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of more additional research and do a second video talking about the differences between Raspberry Pi 5, as well as, let's just say, Rockchip boards with an RK3588, which I think is the latest chip that I think like At Games is using. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. But we can do that as well. If you guys are interested in that video, definitely let me know. So as you know, CES starts bright and early tomorrow, January 7th, here in Las Vegas. Now, although John and Justin Wong are going to do a live stream tomorrow evening, which I'll have linked below if it's something you want to tune into to watch him do the full like hands-on review, which I'm assuming it might be a good watch because they'll have the machine in private in a hotel room or banquet room or whatever they're renting out. So you might be able to get a good look at it and things like that. But keep in mind, CES officially starts tomorrow morning. So there's probably going to be people who go and visit John, and you might see some content out there even before the live stream goes live later that evening. So hopefully I helped you guys out with some information today. Do me a favor, if you enjoyed this news video, give me your comments, feedback, reactions below. Give us a thumbs up on the way out. And as always, my dudes, thank you for subscribing.